My name is Maureen Riley, and I'm 28 years old. If you asked my family who I was, they'd give you the same answer they've been repeating since I was old enough to understand words. She's the quiet one, the easy one, the one who never makes trouble. They say it like it's a compliment, but it never felt like one. Growing up, my older sister Michelle was the one who shone. She was the daughter who filled rooms with her voice, her plans, her demands. My parents loved to say she was born a leader. And me? I was the shadow in the doorway. The kid who learned how to help without being asked, who learned not to expect praise, who learned her value came from staying out of the way. Michelle was the golden child. I was the reliable backup. And the thing about being the reliable one is people stop seeing you as a person. They start seeing you as an option. That truth was already carved deep inside me long before last Christmas. The Christmas everything snapped. It started innocently enough, the way these things always do. I was sitting in my small apartment, a mismatched collection of thrift store furniture and warm lamps that made the place feel softer than it really was. I'd made myself a cup of peppermint tea and was letting the rare quiet settle around me. For once, Christmas didn't feel heavy. It felt tolerable. Then my phone buzzed. Michelle, of course. Her name flashing on my screen brought the old reflexive tightening in my chest, the instinct to brace myself. The message was exactly the one I expected, and exactly the one I dreaded. Hey Maureen, you'll take the kids for a week while we go on a cruise, right? We've had this planned for months. You'll be fine. She didn't ask. She never asked. She informed. She assumed. She always assumed. I stared at the message for a long time. A full minute, maybe more. Long enough for my tea to lose its steam and cool against my palms. A week, a full week. I had work. I had responsibilities. I had a life. A quiet one, sure, but a life I was finally beginning to take pride in. And yet the expectation was baked into the phrasing, the entitlement smooth and casual. I could hear her voice in my head. It's not a big deal. You don't have kids, you have time. You're good with them. You should help. And all my life I had. I helped. I bent. I folded. I made myself small enough to fit the cracks she didn't want to deal with. But something inside me shifted. A small, almost fragile piece of self-respect that had been slowly growing finally clicked into place. My fingers moved before my guilt could catch up. No, Michelle, I can't do that this time. The moment I hit send, a tremor went through my whole body. Fear, disbelief, and something dangerously close to relief. It felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I thought that was it. I thought the message was the end. But with Michelle, nothing is ever that simple. The next day, just as I sat down with my first cup of coffee, someone knocked on my door. Not a polite tap, an insistent, "You'd better answer" knock. When I opened it, there they were. Michelle stood on my doorstep in a bright red sweater, sunglasses pushed into her perfectly blown-out hair. Beside her was her husband, Mark, wearing the exhausted expression of a man who'd learned that disagreeing with his wife wasn't worth the effort. And behind them, luggage, suitcases, a stroller, the kids' backpacks, like they were checking into a hotel. Michelle lifted one suitcase and gave me a dazzling, performative smile. Oh, good, you're home. We didn't see your message, so we just came by. We're heading out today, so if you could just take... No. My voice surprised all three of us. Steady, clear, not shaky or apologetic. Just no. Michelle's smile cracked. Only for a second, but I saw it. Confusion, disbelief, then irritation flickered in her eyes before she put the mask back on. What do you mean no? She asked, voice airy but edged with steel. I'm not babysitting this time. She blinked, then blinked again. Oh, come on, Maureen. She laughed a little too lightly. Don't be dramatic. It's just a week. Behind her, Mark shifted uneasily. It was the kind of nervous shuffle men make when they desperately don't want to get involved. I said no, I repeated. This time her face drained almost entirely of color. You're serious? Dead serious. The silence stretched between us, thick as winter fog. Michelle looked at me like she didn't recognize me, as if she were trying to compute some impossible math problem. Finally, she inhaled sharply, forcing her voice calm. Well, that's your choice, she said, each syllable coated with fake sweetness. But we're still going. She tugged her sunglasses down, turned away sharply, and added without looking back, Have a wonderful holiday, Maureen. I watched them drag their luggage down the hallway, Mark glancing back once as if silently apologizing. When I closed the door, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from release. From the terrifying, intoxicating realization that I had finally defended myself. The next morning, I walked out to check my mail. and that's when I saw it. A piece of paper taped right to the center of my door. Michelle's handwriting, sharp, slanted. You'll regret this. We'll see how you handle life without family. A cold shiver ran through me. It wasn't just a note, it was a warning, a threat, a promise that she wasn't done. And something deep inside me whispered, this is only the beginning. I didn't realize how quickly a no could unravel an entire family system until 3 days later. 3 days of quiet so heavy it felt staged. Michelle wasn't the type to give up, and when she was silent, she was plotting. That was the rule. That had always been the rule. When my phone rang that afternoon, I didn't even have to check the caller ID. I knew. I let it ring twice, hoping it would stop. It didn't. I sighed and answered, hello? Her voice came through sharp, irritated, and completely unbothered by the fact that she had abandoned her children on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. Maureen, why aren't you helping more? I blinked. Helping what exactly? The kids, she snapped, like it was obvious. I told you to check in on them, make sure everything's okay. I stared at my kitchen wall, stunned. She was serious. She actually believed this. You left the country, I said slowly. How would I check in on children who aren't even here? There was loud music behind her. Poolside DJ, kids splashing, clinking glasses. The blissful chaos of a tropical vacation. Maureen, don't be difficult. They're out of control. And Mark is useless and, they're driving me insane. So you're calling me, I said, from a cruise ship to manage children who isn't even in my care. Yes, you're their aunt. I told you no. She scoffed hard, the kind of scoff that dripped with decades of entitlement. You're being so dramatic, Maureen. Honestly, I'm starting to regret even relying on you. This is the last time I'll ever ask you for anything. That familiar line. It was the exact same sentence she had written in the note on my door. Something inside me hardened. That's fine, I said quietly. I don't regret saying no. She went silent, completely silent, as if I'd slapped her. But I wasn't done absorbing the blow she had prepared next. You know, she said finally, voice smooth and rehearsed, Mom thinks you've been a disappointment lately. I told her you're acting distant, cold, and she agreed. She said she's worried about you. It was a gut punch. Not because I believed it, but because I knew Michelle was lying, or twisting, or exaggerating, her favorite sport. Mom hadn't called me in weeks. Not to check in, not to ask if I was okay, not for anything. The only time Mom ever reached out was when Michelle had something to complain about. You talked to Mom about this? I asked, pulse thudding in my neck. Oh, please, someone has to tell her the truth, Michelle said. Everyone's worried about you. You're ruining the holiday, Maureen. You're making this all about you. Her words were poison, disguised as concern. I felt my hand tighten around the phone. I'm done, Michelle. What does that mean? She demanded. It means I'm not your backup plan anymore. I'm not your babysitter. I'm not your emotional punching bag. I'm not the convenient little sister who drops everything for you. Her breath caught, so faint I almost missed it. You're making a huge mistake, she hissed. You'll regret this. She hung up first. For a moment, I stood there staring at the screen, listening to the ringing silence in my apartment. My heart was hammering, but underneath the adrenaline was something surprising. Relief. For the first time in 28 years, I had pushed back, and the sky hadn't fallen. Not yet, but it didn't take long. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Mom. The subject line was my first clue. Fix this. The entire message was only 4 sentences. Maureen, you need to fix this. Michelle is upset, and now the whole family is upset. Don't make this bigger than it is. This is what family is for. I read it 3 times. Not one question about how I was doing. Not one acknowledgement that Michelle had demanded a week of free childcare. Not 1 ounce of curiosity about my side of the story. Just blame. Blame wrapped in obligation. I closed the email and let my head fall back against the couch. There it was, the pattern, the hierarchy, the favoritism that had shaped my entire life. Michelle stirred the pot. Mom tasted it. And I was always the one forced to swallow. The following day, my phone lit up again. Dad. I almost let it go to voicemail, but some naive, aching part of me still hoped for fairness. Dad? I answered. What the hell happened? He barked immediately. Your mother's upset. Michelle's upset. Everyone is upset. Why are you causing drama? I closed my eyes. I said no, I said quietly. I'm not dropping everything to take care of Michelle's kids. I have my own life. You're being selfish, he snapped. The word hit the exact spot Michelle meant it to. Selfish? I whispered. What's selfish is expecting me to give up everything for your convenience. You've never once asked what I need. Silence. A cold, punishing silence. Then he delivered the line that would stay with me for weeks. Michelle and your mother are right. You've always been difficult. You need to learn how to be part of this family. And there it was. The truth behind every holiday dinner, every birthday party, every childhood memory. I was the outsider, the afterthought, the one they believed owed them something simply for existing. I'm not walking away from this family, I said softly. I'm just done being used. He hung up on me, just like that. The next morning, Michelle emailed, "Enjoy your holidays, Maureen. This is the last time I'll ever ask you for anything." An hour later, Mom called. "You've broken your sister's heart," she said flatly. "Now you're breaking mine." "No," I said steadily. "You're upset because I didn't obey." "You'll regret this," she warned. "No," I whispered. "I won't." She hung up. I sat there after the call, adrenaline shaking my fingers, but beneath the fear was a steady flame. I had taken control of my life, and they hated it. But I loved it, even if it hurt, even if I cried, even if I knew the storm wasn't over. Because storms only destroy what was built on something weak. And for the first time ever, I was building something for myself. Weeks passed. Not peacefully, not softly, but in that strange, suspended quiet that comes after a storm, when you're not sure if the worst is over or if the next wave is already forming beyond the horizon. Christmas decorations still hung around my apartment, but they felt out of place now. The lights blinked cheerfully in the window, but inside, life didn't feel cheerful at all. It felt different. Different in a way I couldn't yet name. For the first time in my entire life, I had boundaries. Real ones, spoken ones, ones I didn't back away from, even when my family reacted with the exact guilt, anger, and emotional shrapnel I had feared since childhood. And now that the dust was settling, an uncomfortable thought followed me everywhere. If I had known it would feel this freeing, why had I waited 28 years? But freedom isn't clean. It comes wrapped in grief sometimes. Some mornings I woke up relieved, lighter almost. I made coffee slowly, without dread, without waiting for my phone to buzz with some task Michelle needed done. I felt the silence in my apartment shift into something comforting rather than suffocating. Other mornings, I felt like I had ripped myself out of the only story I'd ever been allowed to be part of. A character leaving the script, a puzzle piece refusing to fit. My family's absence wasn't just quiet, it was pointed. No calls, no texts, no invitations, no passive-aggressive Facebook posts from Mom, which in our family was practically a love language. Just silence, the kind of silence that felt like an accusation. And yet underneath the ache, something else was growing. A sense of self that I didn't have to shrink to fit into their expectations. I was learning who Maureen Riley was when she wasn't cast as the supporting character in someone else's narrative. I began filling my days with things I had postponed for years. I worked extra hours, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I cleaned my apartment, rearranged my furniture, bought a new plant, even though I wasn't sure I could keep it alive. I cooked meals that made my kitchen smell like cloves and cinnamon. I joined a weekend pottery class, and I was terrible at it, gloriously terrible. The instructor patted my shoulder and said, "Some people find beauty in chaos." I chose to believe her. For the first time, I wasn't living around the edges of Michelle's demands. I wasn't waiting for the next favor, the next request, disguised as responsibility. The quiet wasn't loneliness, it was space. Space for me, but the old voices didn't leave without a fight. Mom's warning, "You'll regret this," echoed when I tried to sleep some nights. Dad's accusation, "You've always been difficult," crept in during moments of doubt. And Michelle's final message, "This is the last time I'll ever ask you for anything," stung more than I wanted to admit, even if their words were manipulative, even if their anger was misplaced, even if their disappointment said more about them than me. They were still my family, or at least the people I had always called family. Losing them, even in self-defense, felt like setting fire to a house you grew up in. Necessary, but devastating. One afternoon, 3 weeks after everything exploded, I came home to a small cardboard package sitting quietly outside my door. No return address, just my name written across the top in curling handwriting I knew too well. Michelle. I stared at it for a long moment, unsure if I should take it inside or toss it straight into the dumpster. My curiosity eventually won. I carried it inside, placed it on the coffee table, and sat down slowly. I opened it as if disarming something fragile or something dangerous. Inside was a photo album, leather-bound, heavy, old. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside were pictures from our childhood. Michelle with her arm wrapped around me at the park. Michelle blowing out candles while I clapped quietly beside her. Me holding her first baby in my arms. Family photos where I stood slightly behind everyone else. Christmas mornings. School events. Vacations where I spent more time behind the camera than in the frame. Every photo told the same story. I was always present, always helping, always there, and always slightly invisible. At the very back of the album was a note. I recognized her handwriting immediately. Sharp, rounded, confident. You'll always be part of this family, Maureen. Michelle. My throat tightened, not with sadness and not with relief. With clarity. Michelle didn't send this to apologize. She didn't send it because she understood. She sent it because in her mind, I was still part of the orbit she controlled. Still the dependable one. Still hers to summon, scold, or soothe. Part of the family meant, you belong to us. You owe us. You don't get to walk away. I closed the album gently. Then I stood up and placed it on my bookshelf, not as a symbol of reconciliation, but as a record. A record of who I had been, and who I wasn't going to be anymore. That evening, I sat by my window as the last of the Christmas lights along the street flickered out. My apartment was dim, quiet, peaceful. For the first time, I felt something warm settle over me. Not fear, not regret, not guilt. Acceptance. I had lost something, but I had gained something bigger. My voice, my autonomy, my life back. Michelle might never understand. Mom might never forgive me. Dad might never see my side. But I did not regret saying no. Not then, not now, not ever. Because sometimes the quietest one in the family, the one no one takes seriously, the one everyone assumes will always bend, is the one who walks away and never looks back.